So now we continue from where we left, and sometimes, where it's not so relevant, I will just omit it, right? Okay, we are on, I don't know, page 15, marked page 15. I think we are on page 14. Is that? Oh yeah, 14. We're on 14. When the other Buddhist schools, the autonomy, mind only, sutra, and great exposition. So great exposition school, henceforth I'm going to use the Sanskrit word, Vaibhashika. This is more commonly used, Vaibhashika school. And sutra is Sutrantika. Great exposition school is Vaibhashika. V-A-I-B-A, Vaibha, S-H-I, Vaibhashika, K-A, Vaibhashika. Sutrantika. And mind-only school, in Sanskrit, it is Chittamatra. C-H-I-T-T-A, Chitta, C-H-I-T-T-A, Chitta Matra, M-A-T-R-A, Chittamatra. And then autonomy school, in Sanskrit is Svatantrika, S-V-A-T-A-N-T-R-I-K-A, Svatantrika. Okay, so let's see. When the other Buddhist schools, the autonomy, mind-only, sutra, and great exposition schools, are weighed by the consequent school. Consequent school in Sanskrit is Prasangika, P-A-S-A-N-G-I-K-A, Prasangika. So, if I happen to say Prasangika, it is the consequent school. If I say Svatantrika Madhyamika, it means autonomous school, right? First, let me put it this way, for your sake, for your convenience. Let us, as said earlier, Buddhist schools can be broken down into 4. Vaibhashika, so I start from the basic one. Vaibhashika school, Sutrantika school, Chittamatra school, and middle way school or Madhyamika school, right? 4 schools. So the Vaibhashika, Sutrantika, and Chittamatra, so basically we say there is no division. Although they do have divisions, but for convenience sake, let's put them as solid groups, they're 3. And the final, the Madhyamika or the middle way school, it has 2 divisions. The autonomous and the consequence. Autonomous, Svatantrika Madhyamika, and consequence is Prasangika Madhyamika. So these 2, right? So of all these different Buddhist schools, Prasangika or the consequent school is the highest. The concepts revealed, concepts explained in the Prasangika school is the ultimate intention of the Buddha, right? So the consequence or the Prasangika school's presentation truly reflects the Buddha's intention. This you have to keep in mind. So now let's see, of all these different schools, which is the highest? Prasangika or consequence, these 2 are same. So now since that it is highest, it means that rest of the schools, they have some flaws. There are some mistakes in their philosophical positions, right? Okay. So, yesterday we said that all of these schools, the propounders of each of these schools, they think that their concepts truly reflect the Buddha's concept, right? They think that all other schools, they have fallen to some form of extremes, right? However, in true sense, although all schools think that way, it is only the Prasangikas, thoughts which truly reflects the Buddha's intentions. This is what we have to keep in mind. So let's read again. When the other Buddhist schools, the autonomy, mind-only, sutra, and great exposition schools are weighed by the consequent school, they are all found to fall to extremes of permanence and annihilation. So last time I used the word, the extreme of nihilism and absolutism. So it is a matter of translation. So nihilism, you can translate the extreme of nihilism as the extreme of annihilation. But I prefer the extreme of nihilism. And the extreme of permanence, you can again go for the extreme of absolutism. These two mean the same. So whenever in different translations, if you see, in some text, in English translation, if you see extreme of absolutism, it simply means the extreme of permanence. Or likewise, extreme of permanence is extreme of absolutism. These two are just interchangeable. Okay, so all different schools, all Buddhist schools, they think that their thoughts or their concepts truly reflect the middle way, which is free of the two extremes, right? However, from the point of view of consequent school or prasangika, they are all found to fall to one of the extremes of permanence and annihilation or nihilism. However, the autonomist and below, meaning, all other schools other than prasangika or consequence, all other schools like the lower schools, including autonomist, and below, each maintain that their own system is a middle way school, because they claim that they assert a middle free from the two extremes of permanence and annihilation. Each of the schools, they think that their concept is the middle way, thinking that their concept truly is freed from the two extremes. So they come up with their own versions of the extremes and then say that, we are the middle way philosopher. Moreover, each of the four schools of tenets has a different way of avoiding the extremes of permanence and annihilation. So now, what are the different ways of avoiding the extremes of permanence and annihilation? What are the different ways of avoiding the two extremes from the point of view of the four different schools? So the first one, now I am going a little bit quick, right? So don't let your mind go astray. If you let your mind go astray, you can miss a lot. Once you miss something, you cannot connect it to the next thing. Then you might be the loser greatly. Okay. So now, what are the different ways of avoiding the extremes? From the point of view of the four different schools. So first, our first school is the proponents of the great exposition, referring to Vaibhashikas, the first school, the lower school. Lower school, they think that, they maintain that they avoid the extreme of permanence, the extreme of permanence or the extreme of absolutism, by thinking that because they assert that when an effect is produced, it causes cease. Quite simple. Say, there is this seed, apple seed. You plant the apple seed, and then it grows into a huge apple tree. And if you still think that that original seed is there after the result has already come into being, so actually what will happen? The seed, will it remain, or that will simply transform into the result? Transform, which means that when the result is given rise to the original seed, does it still exist? No. So as simple as that. So whereas if you believe that after the result is given rise to, the seed, the original seed still remains, this means there is a belief in the permanence of that cause, right? So you have fallen to the extreme of permanence. So this from the point of view of which school? Vaibhashika. So they think that you can avoid the extreme of permanence if you're able to say that the seed no longer exist when the result is given rise to, right? Number one. Now let's see how, from their point of view, how they want to avoid the extreme of annihilation. They say that they also avoid the extreme of annihilation because they assert that in effect arises after the termination of a cause, right? So say, oh, there's the seed. I want to eat the apples. So then you plant apple seeds, right? So after planting the apple seed, if there is no result at all coming to being, then what is the point, right? So if you believe that all causes have no results, what will happen to you if you eat poison? What will happen? Right? So similarly, if you overeat, what will happen?
Nothing.
Right? So you see that there's the consequence, the results coming about in dependence on what causes are. So after having all these causes, if you still believe that the results don't come about at all, this means that you are denigrating the existence of the results. Denigrating. So therefore, you believe in the non-existence of the results, which is the extreme of nihilism, right? So whereas if you're able to rightly say that, with these causes, these results are going to come about, so there, you are freed from the extreme of nihilism, right? So now among all of us here, is there anyone who has fallen to the extreme of nihilism according to Vaibhashika? No. Anyone? No. So what about falling to the extreme of permanence? No. Okay. So do you think that from the point of view of Vaibhashika, you are a middle way philosopher? Okay. So if that is the case, now the debate or the argument is that Vaibhashikas, don't you think that the Vaibhashikas, they are the middle way philosophers? They think that, they think that they are the only middle way philosophers. All other philosophers, they are falling to one of the extremes. So then from that, now it is your homework. Your homework is that just discuss among yourself. What about, say first of all, what about the consequent school, the highest Buddhist school? From the point of view of Vaibhashika, is that fall into one of the extremes, or that is the middle way philosopher? One of the extremes, right? Now the question is, if this is the two measures by which to see whether one is falling to the extreme of nihilism or eternalism or absolutism, so this is your homework. A consequentialist or prasangika, is it not falling to the extremes from the point of view of Vaibhashika? Of course it is. It should not be because it accepts that when the causes, when the results are given rise to, or let me put it this way, so the debate should be so coherent. So the debate is that the consequentialist school is not falling to the extreme, is not falling to the two extremes because it is not falling to the extreme of nihilism as well as the extreme of absolutism. So what would you say? Of course it is falling to one of the extremes. So first, it is not falling to the extreme of absolutism or permanence because the consequentialist or the prasangikas, they believe that when the result is given rise to, the causes cease. This is what they believe, right? So anyone who believes that, from the point of view of Vaibhashika, the person is freed from the extreme of permanence. So this means that from the point of view of Vaibhashika, in the world of Vaibhashika, consequentialist is freed of the extreme of permanence, because they believe that when the result is given rise to, the causes no longer exist. right? And also, from the point of view, not only that the consequentialists, they are freed of the extreme of permanence, they are also freed of the extreme of annihilation or nihilism. Because when, when the causes are there, the consequentialists believe that the results are given rise to. It's not that the result is never given rise to. So, from the point of view of Vaibhashika, even the consequentialists should be the middle way philosophers, because they avoid the two extremes. But what is said here is that according to the other schools, they think that they alone are the middle way philosophers. Others are falling into one of the extremes. So this is your homework. So likewise, you examine with Sutrantika from the point of view of Vaibhashika. In the domain of Vaibhashika, just trying to bring in Sutrantika and see if it is, extreme to which of the two extremes it is fallen, or see if it is, accepts the middle way, if it is following the middle way approach, right? So your standpoint should be that none of the other schools, other than Vaibhashika, is a middle way philosopher. This should be your standpoint, and you should be able to hold it and let others argue against you, and you should be able to hold it so wisely. And if you have to say, that, other schools, they are also middle way philosophers from the point of view of Vaibhashika, this means you are the loser. Okay, so this is your homework. Next. Page 15. I think we are done with that. The last para of page 15. The proponents of sutra. So now let's see how the proponents of sutra referring to the second school, Sutrantika. So let's see. The proponents of sutra say that they avoid the extreme of annihilation through asserting that the continuum of a compounded phenomena exists continuously. Okay, I'll explain it. Compounded phenomena referring to those things which are, which are the composites of parts, like particles or the moments of mind and so forth. They're compounded. For example, this table is compounded of the legs and the top plank and these things. And the human beings, they are compounded of the body and the mind. The body is further compounded by the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and so forth. So this is what is meant by compounded phenomena. So they say that the compounded phenomena exists continuously. So say this is quite sensible, but again, we have a lot more homeworks to do. One is that in terms of the atoms, what would be the position of the contemporary physicists? Atoms that constitute our body, physical body. What about the origin? They came from, is that something that came to, become a body, part of our body, just randomly, or they came from, Big Bang times, from the time of the Big Bang? In terms of the atoms, no doubt, the atoms, if you still break them into smaller than quarks, electrons, so they are believed to come from Big Bang, the time of Big Bang, So they may take, because of the different configuration, they may assume different aspects in different times. Say at one point, there may be some in form of apples, and then you eat it, and then gradually it turns out to be, the part of the red cheeks, and then again you die, and then it again becomes earth, and then again something grows into a flower, so that same atom taking different forms, right? So the basic atom came from the beginning of the time, right? So what the Sutrantikas, they're exactly saying that all the compounded things like atoms and so forth, in terms of their continuity, continuum, there's never break. The atoms will never, go into nowhere. They'll continue, right? So whereas if you think, if there's anyone who believes that any compounded things, at one point it will disappear like rainbow. If you believe that, this means that you are falling to the extreme of nihilism, right? Whereas if you're able to posit rightly that all compounded things should necessarily continue, is continuum, this means you are free from the extreme of nihilism, because you are able to posit something existing which is existing. Say a compounded thing, for example, this table, and then if you believe that, the next day it disappears without any trace, right? So in that case, you're following the extreme of nihilism, because in true sense, the table may get burned, may get broken, but there's a trace left, continuing, right? So while the traces continue and while the traces exist, and if you believe that the traces, they don't exist anymore, they don't exist at all, you are falling to the extreme of nihilism, right? Okay, so now see if you are falling to the extreme of nihilism according to Sutrantika. Yes, no? Okay, so I don't know. So let's see. The proponents of Sutra say that they avoid the extreme of annihilation through asserting that the continuum of a compounded phenomena exists continuously. One. Number two, let's see how they avoid the extreme of permanence. The proponents of Sutra maintain that they are also free from the extreme of permanence because of the assertion that compounded phenomena disintegrate from moment to moment. There's another important thing. Now look, there is, there is the profundity in terms of the two extremes. The profundity is being developed. You see every time as compared to Vaibhashika's belief or Vaibhashika's standpoint, we see that the two extremes set forth by Sutrantika is more profound. Vaibhashika's one is so simple. And then now Sutrantika, they are saying that the compounded phenomena, they disintegrate. They should necessarily disintegrate moment by moment. This is the reality. Right? And whereas if you think that, say, I'm 30 years old, boy or girl, and you think that, I'm going to be this young, for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years. There's permanence, sense of permanence, right? So I will never disintegrate. I'll always remain like this. We may not say this, but this is the kind of feeling that people have. Say, you're like 85 years or 50, 90 years old. Still you think of constructing a very strong house for yourself, which can remain for the next 500 years. And you don't know, So, we see that this is because of our holding ourselves to be so permanent, So whereas Sutrantika is saying that, no, every compounded phenomena should necessarily disintegrate moment by moment, So while compounded things disintegrate moment by moment, whereas if you believe that compounded things simply remain eternally, without any disintegration, this means that you're falling to the extreme of permanence, right? Whereas if you truly understand that all compounded phenomena, necessarily follows the rule of moment by moment disintegration, if you know that, then you are freed from the extreme of permanence, right? Now again, look, this is homework. Madhyamikas, or the Prasangika Madhyamika, or Swatantrika Madhyamika, the high schools, from the point of view of Sutrantika school, are they falling to the extremes, or they are following the middle way school, middle way philosophy? Just discuss among yourselves, and never should you say that the Prasangikas are middle way philosophers from the point of view of Sutrantika. If you say that, you're ashamed. Right? Okay, next. Again, this is your homework. Next, proponents of mind-only school, Chittamatra, the third school. Chittamatra is, from the point of view of Chittamatra, of course, what we are saying right now is really laying down the foundation of all things. So when you have all these things, then, many of the treatises or the texts will become so easy. Okay. Mind-only school or Chittamatra, what they speak, how they try to explain the entire world is by encapsulating, by grouping every phenomena that exists into 3 categories. Right? Okay. I don't know the terminology, but don't worry. Let me use my own terminology or my own translation, and then we'll try to correlate what is used there. Imputed, imputational, let me put it this way, not imputed phenomena, because there is one complication. Imputational, the group of imputational. Number 2, the other powered phenomena. Number 3, thoroughly established phenomena. Number 1, imputational. Number 2, other powered phenomena. And number 3, thoroughly established phenomena. 3, right? Okay, let me explain each of these 3. First, before imputational, let me jump to other powered. Other powered means anything whose coming into being is by means of others' power, is by means of, the power of the causes. Anything whose coming into being is by the power of other causes. In short, it simply means all impermanent phenomena. Impermanent phenomena and other powered phenomena, these 2 are synonymous. Right? Okay. Then, what is third? Thoroughly established phenomena. Thoroughly established phenomena referring to the ultimate reality, emptiness. All ultimate realities, emptiness or the ultimate reality and the thoroughly established phenomena, these 2 are synonymous. Right? Now what we are left? Imputational. This is complication. Okay. So, before I explain this, let me ask you one thing. Just think of anything. Each one of you bring something which is so funny and give it to me, and then I will put in one of these 3 groups.
Alligator.
What is?
An alligator.
And what?
Alligator.
Alligator. Just tell me, help me. I cannot, do that by myself. Just help me.
Snowshoes.
Where does it fall?
Other powered.
Other powered. Good. Jambil? Any funny thing?
Lasagna.
What is lasagna? Food. Just don't try to think of something else which you think would be challenging for others to put in one of these 3 groups. Sky. Who said it?
Sky.
You. Sky. Just anyone? No, wait. Which of these three? In which of these 3 groups? If sky. Yeah, this is challenging. So let's keep it for a while. Anyone else? Happiness. Which? Anyone? Other powered. Why? Why?
It's impermanent.
Good. It is impermanent. Good.
It depends on other causes.
Sorry, anyone else? What else?
Dream.
Space.
Dream. Anyone? Where does it fall? Yeah. Other powers. Good. Anyone else?
Earth.
Earth. Other powered.
Space.
Space and sky. Complicated. Sorry? Ideas. Anyone?
Other power.
Why?
They rise and go.
Sorry?
Because they rise and go, and the rest of the causes.
They're impermanent. This is another challenging point. Yes. Anyway, so there are two. Two are quite clear, although it may not be so concrete. But the third one is what is known as imputational. So just bring anything, not necessarily, something beautiful or attractive like that. Anything that comes to your mind.
Categories.
Yeah, categories. So very good, very good. Where does it fall into? It doesn't fall into the category of other powered, nor in the category of thoroughly established phenomena, because it's not the ultimate reality. So it should necessarily be, there's no option, anything that you can think that comes to your mind which does not fall in the category of thoroughly established phenomena nor in the other powered, it should necessarily fall in the imputational section. So a category falls in the imputational section, and space, sky and space. Space, there are two kinds. Sky also complicated. Sky and space, part of it falls in the category of other powered and part of it in the imputational. Anyone else? But category, no doubt it falls in the category of imputational. Okay, so what about, the elephant in this house?
Negations.
Elephant in this house.
Right. That's
What is it doing?
it's not existing.
Is it eating grass? No, it is non-existent. But it comes to our mind. It can come to our mind. I told you, anything that comes to your mind, just try to put them in one of these three groups. So the elephant in this house, where does it fall into? Is it other powered?
No.
Why not?
It's not changing for a moment.
Because it's not impermanent phenomena. And is it in the category of the thoroughly established phenomena? Why? It is not the ultimate reality. So naturally it should fall in the third category. What is that? Imputational, right? So now you get a little bit of clue as to what it means. Now if I give you now if I explain it, then you will get something. Otherwise, before that, it will simply, confuse you. So what is imputational? It is, something that exists by means of mental imputation. Right? So for example, the elephant in this house is simply mentally created, mental imputation. It has no basis over there, right? Elephant in this house. So Jambal is, showing the expression as though like it has some basis.
No, that one doesn't. But what about space?
Good.
Space does. I hope.
Good argument here. What about space? Help me.
What do you say, John?
Space.
You say space.
So we said that space does not fall in.
Then when I stop,
My question to you, space, does it fall in the category of other powered?
No.
No. Thoroughly established phenomena?
No.
So naturally imputed. Now his argument is, how come that the spaces, fall in the category of imputational? Because imputational is what I defined as something which is mentally imputed. So the space is not something which is mentally imputed.
It's an
Right.
absence of some of other solid matter. So it's like the essence of the elephant in the room.
Sorry?
I don't know.
No, elephant in this room, no doubt,
Yes, but that's,
it falls in the category of imputational.
Yes.
But what about space?
but it's the same thing because it's a negation. So
It's negation.
It's a negation of something more solid.
So still, how can you say that it is imputed by your thought?
Maybe they need another category.
No, no, no. So if you try to come up with the next category, fourth category, this means you are the loser in the debate. You should be able to hold on this position and at the same time not be able to, be able to answer all the issues. Right? This is the beauty of debate.
So space is defined as lack of
Obstructiveness.
obstructibility, right.
Yeah. So,
Where's the negation? Where do
It
negations go?
exists, whereas the elephant in the room doesn't exist.
Regardless, it is not permanent and it is not an ultimate truth.
No.
So-
And it's not
But
merely
it's
true
not a
because it
mental
exists,
imputation.
yes.
but it exists without.
Okay.
But
I'm deliberately, yes.
I think of space as other powered because we talk about the space between something and between two things, right? The space between John Pell and I, or the space between the earth and the sun, or the space between
Okay, yeah. So,
whatever,
so
right? Like,
so
so it depends. It's dependent upon the two things that you're measuring or that you perceive.
so therefore it should be other powered.
So it should be other powered. I think
Other powered, how did I define it? Don't try to define it on your own ways. Something which comes into being by the power of dependence on causes.
Yes, so maybe.
So you mean to say that the space is, say for example the space between you and me. Are you the cause of this space?
No, but I can choose
No,
the space.
no. This is not my argument. So you should be able to hold on the definitions, the divisions, and these things as set forth in the text. At the same time responding to the issues so well. This is, if you're able to do that, you are a wonderful debater, philosopher. If not, I don't know.
So the space within the universe is dependent upon the Big Bang.
No, space between us. Is that dependent on Big Bang?
It depends on you two being there.
Yeah.
If you're
So,
not there, there's no.
so is that, yeah, it's fine. Is that, is that space, if you say if that space is other powered is defined as something whose coming into being is by the power of the causes. So do you mean to say that we two are the causes of this space? Okay, this is another argument. Okay, so let me put it this way. Actually, what Damdul came up with, the space, how can you say this is imputational? This question and his question about how, while the table is impermanent, the emptiness nature of the table is permanent. So these two questions are so closely related, which very likely I will respond to you tomorrow or day after tomorrow. But it is your responsibility to remind me of this question. If not, I can escape so easily. Right? Okay, so now let's move on. Okay, so now look, how many, in how many groups all phenomena are, categorized by Chittamatras? Three. What are they? Imputational, other powered. Okay, so these three, right? And what they say is that, now the second step, what they say is that, what is the second one? Other powered. What is third? Okay, of the three groups, the other powered and the thoroughly established phenomena, these two exist truly and independently. And whereas, what is the first? Imputational. Imputational exists without self-characteristic. It does not exist independently. It does not exist truly. This is the belief or the philosophy of Chittamatra school. Now, on the basis of this understanding, they will explain to you as to how to avoid the two extremes. Okay, so now let's read. the proponents of mind only or Chittamatra say that they avoid the extreme of permanence by asserting that imputational natures, right, do not truly exist. So they think that imputational natures or imputational things, but not things, imputational natures is good. Imputational natures, they don't truly exist, you know. If you're able to understand this reality, right, then you will not make the error of saying that the imputational natures exist truly. If you don't make this error, then you are freed from the extreme of the permanence. You know, permanence here doesn't really mean, you know, permanent, permanence in the literal sense. It simply means absolutism. You know, believing that imputation from the natures, yeah. Imputational natures, they don't exist so solidly and so independently, so absolutely. You know? So whereas if you believe that the imputational things, such as the elephant in this house, exist so solidly and so truly, this means you are fallen to the extreme of permanence. Do you, any one of you here, believe that the elephant in this house exists so solidly and independently? No. And you think that you are free from the extreme of absolutism, according to Chittamatra school? Yes. Are you sure? But this is just a part of it. You should be able to avoid all the extremes of, you know, permanence in order to say that you are free from the extreme of permanence. So whatever is the case, you know, so if you're able to say that all imputational natures, they don't truly exist, they don't have true existence, if you're able to say that well, then you are free from the extreme of absolutism or permanence, right? Number one. Number two, they say that they also avoid the extreme of annihilation or nihilism through asserting the true existence of dependent natures. I said other powered or dependent natures, these two are same, right? So whereas if you know, so what about the dependent natures or other powered? Do they exist truly or not? No, from the point of view of Chittamatra.
Yes.
Yeah, right? So since from their point of view, they exist truly, you know, whereas contrary to this, if you say that the other powered or dependent natures, they don't exist truly, this means that you are denigrating something. You are falling to the extreme of nihilism. Whereas if you're able to say that the dependent natures, they exist truly, you know, then you are freed from the extreme of nihilism or annihilation. Next, the proponents of the middle way school maintain that they are free from middle way school, the high school, which can further be divided into two, the consequentialist and the autonomist. Anyway, the middle way school in general, the proponents of the middle way school maintain that they are free from the extreme of annihilation. This, I think, is quite okay for you, because you're already introduced to true truths and these things, you know, from the extreme of annihilation, because they assert the conventional existence of all phenomena, you know, saying that all conventional phenomena exist. So, whereas if you say, oh, nothing exists, including conventional reality, this means that you are fallen to the extreme of annihilation. You are denigrating the existence. So therefore, you are falling to the extreme of annihilation. Whereas if you are able to posit the existence of the conventional reality as it is, then you are freed from the extreme of annihilation. And then they consider that they are free from the extreme of permanence or absolutism, because they assert that all phenomena whatsoever are without ultimate existence, you know. So from the point of view of the middle way school, there is nothing existing in the ultimate sense. In the ultimate sense, there is nothing existing on the ultimate level, nothing existing. While nothing exists on the ultimate level, if you believe that things exist on the ultimate level, you are falling to the extreme of absolutism, right? Okay, so our job is to try to commingle the different schools, with the, the standpoints of how to avoid the extreme of nihilism, how to avoid the extreme of absolutism, and then see, if other schools really fit in another school as the middle way philosopher or not. If you ever say that the school B is a middle way philosopher from the point of view of school A, you're the loser. Don't do it, right? So, but at the same time, you should be able to answer it, respond to it so coherently and so convincingly. This is your homework. Okay, next. Although, now look, this we can understand, we can go quite quickly. Although those tenets of the lower schools that are not shared by the higher schools are refuted by the higher schools of tenets, an understanding of the lower views is an excellent method for gaining an understanding of the higher views. So because I said that Madhyamika school is the ultimate intention of the Buddha, we are not supposed to denigrate the lower schools' positions. It is by means of learning the lower schools and then trying to see to the arguments, the debates happening among the different schools that you will learn, you will come to learn the precise presentation of the Madhyamika school, right? So therefore, the presentations of the other schools, they are crucially required for our maturation. Right? So we are not to denigrate, rather we are to learn everything so precisely in order to, understand the Prasangika view so clearly. So these are like the steps. So without the first two, steps in this staircase, how can you possibly jump to the roof? If you ever do that, you'll fall down and you will have legs broken or something before you get to the goal. So similarly, the understanding of the presentations of the other schools, they are crucially, they are really very important and helpful for gaining insight into the ultimate understanding of emptiness according to Prasangika. Next. Therefore, you should not despise the lower tenets just because you hold the higher tenets to be superior. The definition of a proponent of Buddhist tenets is, so now what is the definition of the proponents of Buddhist tenets? Is a person who asserts the four seals, which are the views testifying that a doctrine is Buddha's. The four seals are, so in short, anyone who understands or who believes in the infallibility, in the efficacy, the truthfulness of these four seals of the Buddha's teaching. You are a philosopher, or you are, the doctrine holder of the Buddha. So what are the four seals? All compounded phenomena are impermanent. All contaminated things are miserable. All phenomena are selfless. Nirvana is peace. So in bracket you can put it like this. The third one, all phenomena are empty and selfless, instead of just selfless. And then fourth, Nirvana is peace and virtue. Anyone who holds to the idea of these, the infallibility of these four teachings of the Buddha, is considered as the proponent of, proponent of Buddhist tenets. And anyone who doesn't accept, these four, or any of these four teachings as valid, then you are disqualified from being the proponents of Buddhist tenets, right? So then the next objection. In that case, Vatsiputriyas, a sub-school of the Great Exposition School, which means Vaibhashika, a sub-school of Vaibhashika, would not be proponents of, okay, so before reading this, let me orally say it. According to what is said here, is that for someone to be qualified as the proponent of Buddhist tenets, one should be able to hold on to these four teachings. Whereas if you miss, holding any of these four teachings, you are disqualified as the proponents of Buddhist tenets. So in that case, the objection arises. There is one subschool of Vipassika who is known as the Vatsipuri, who believes, who says that the self exists as autonomous substantial nature, so solidly and independently. So whereas here, according to the third seal, it says all phenomena are selfless. There is no concrete self. So Vatsipuri, who is one of the subsections of Vipassika school, since it believes in the existence of the self as so concrete and autonomous nature, so he is not complying with these four teachings. He is not complying with the third. So this means he should be disqualified as the proponents of the Buddhist teachings, right? If that is the case, he should not be a Buddhist tenet holder, in which case he should not be Vipassika, in which case he cannot be the subset of Vipassika, subschool of Vipassika, but he is a subschool of Vipassika, because it says that, here, in that case, the Vatsiputriyas, a subschool of Great Exposition School, Vipassika, would not be proponents of Buddhist tenets because they assert a self of persons. Then the response. So look, everything is so just congested, So the response says that the self, there are different ways of different levels of positing, the self. So say, wrong views related to the self, there are varying degrees in terms of subtlety. So say, let me put it this way, the selfhood, the self existing as eternal, unitary, independent nature, number one. Number two, the self existing as, let me put it this way, ignorance or the misconception of the self as eternal, unitary, independent nature, number one. Number two, misconception, you write it down? Okay, in that case I will slow down. First one is the misconception regarding to the self as eternal, unitary, independent nature. Misconception number one. Misconception number two. Misconception over the self as autonomous, substantial nature. Right? Number three, misconception of the self as external nature. Number four, misconception over the self as truly existent nature, or truly existent. Misconception 5 is the misconception over the self as inherently existent. So how many different layers of misconceptions regarding the self? At least 5. At least 5. So of these 5, the response given by Guinchen Jingme Ongbo, the author of this text, is that the Vatsiputriyas, this sub-school of Vipassika school, what they believe of the self as so concrete is in terms of the second level. What is the second level? The self as autonomous substantial nature. And so from that point of view, it believes in the concreteness of the self. But in relation to the first level of the misconception, what is that?
Eternal, unitary.
Yeah, in terms of that, they have no misconception. They know that the self does not exist as eternal, unitary, independent nature. So they know the selflessness of eternal, unitary, independent nature, right? So the author clarifies the issue, saying that the third seal of the Buddha, which says that all phenomena are selfless, here is referring to the selflessness in terms of eternal, unitary, independent nature, and not in terms of the other levels. So if you understand this self as lacking eternal unitary independent nature, then you comply to the third teaching, third seal. So Vasit Putriya, so therefore complies with all these four teachings. So therefore they still are qualified as the proponents of Buddhist tenets, right? So this is the response given. So now let's see what is the answer. Answer: there's no such fallacy, because the self that they assert is a self-sufficient, or the autonomous substantial reality, self-sufficient, substantially existent self, whereas the selflessness of the four seals, which is the third one, refers to the absence of permanent unitary independent self, eternal unitary independent self. And that selflessness is asserted even by the five Samitiya schools, the Vatsiputriyas being one of the five, although they do assert an inexpressible self. Okay? Let's go ahead. The Great Exposition School, or Vibhashka. So now look, the kind of the format in which the explanations is given follows the same. This follows the same in all the other schools, right? For example, the definition, sub-schools, etymology, assertions of tenets, assertions of the basis, the parts, the results, everything, the way it is formatted in the Great Exposition School will be just carried on to the other schools as well, in the same fashion. So let's see. The presentation of tenets of the proponents, something is missing here. The proponents of the Great Exposition is in 4 parts. Something is missing here. Yeah. Proponents of the Great Exposition School, is in 4 parts: definition, sub-schools, etymology, and assertions of tenets, in 4, parts. First, definition. So how would you define the Great Exposition School proponents? The definition of the proponent of the Great Exposition is, now look, a person propounding lesser vehicle tenets, who does not accept self-cognizing consciousness and who asserts external objects as being truly established. If you understand this, you know how many lines? 4 lines. If you understand these 4 lines, perfect, whole thick books, of Buddhist philosophy. Anyway, let's try. A person propounding lesser vehicle. A person is, what do you understand? A propound, clear. Lesser vehicle. Lesser vehicle means a lesser vehicle and lesser vehicle tenets. We should be able to make this distinction. Lesser vehicle and lesser vehicle tenets, right? Say, how many vehicles are there in Buddhist teachings? Buddhist system? 3. What are they?
The Hinayana, the Mahayana, and the Vajrayana.
As Vajrayana, they are not Mahayanas?
Yes,
They are. So why you separate it? The Tantrayana naturally is in the category of Mahayana. So why should I exclude it? So how many vehicles?
2.
What are they? Lesser and higher, or Mahayana, Hinayana. And Hinayana can be divided into 2. What are they? Shravakayana and Pradikabuddhayana, which means, the practice of the vehicle of the Shravakas and the vehicle of Pradikabuddhas, right? 2. And the Bodhisattvas or the Mahayana, 3, right? Okay, so when you talk in terms of the vehicles, the lesser vehicles, you simply think about the Hinayana or the Shravakayana and Pradikabuddhayana, the vehicle of the Shravakas and the vehicle of the what? Pradikabuddhas. So when you speak about the lesser vehicle, whereas when you speak about the lesser vehicle tenet, right, this is different. So don't simply think about it. It has nothing to do with Shravakas and the Pradikabuddhas in these things. And when you say the higher vehicle tenet, it has nothing to do with the Bodhisattvas, right? So how to classify the you know how to classify the higher vehicle and the lower vehicle, but we don't know how to classify the higher vehicle tenets and the lower vehicle tenets. Very simple. How many tenet systems are there in Buddhism? 4. What are they? Vaibhashika, Sutrantika, Chittamatra, and Madhyamika. There are 4, right? So the first 2 schools are known as the lower vehicle tenets, tenet system, and the 2 higher schools, Buddhist schools, are referred to as the higher vehicle tenets. As simple as that, right? Okay, so now let's read. A person propounding lesser vehicle tenets, which means Vaibhashika or Sutrantika, who does not accept self-cognizing consciousness. Shall I deal with that here or? Okay, let's do it. Let's do it. Okay. Who does not accept self-cognizing consciousness. Say the light here. The light here, What makes us see, see what is written there on the page, on the paper? Is the light. So this light helps us. This light helps us see something else. At the same time, not only that we can see what is there, the written on the paper, we can also see the light. So what helps us see the light? The light itself. So which means that the light does 2 functions. It functions to illuminate the other objects, and also it functions to illuminate itself. Right? Similarly, it is Chittamatras and Sutrantikas and part of Madhyamikas who believe that our minds, they do 2 functions simultaneously. One, they understand what is there outside the mind, and the other, they understand what's going on inside. They understand outside as well as they understand inside. Right? So, from the point of view of understanding inside, the mind itself, it is known as self-cognition, self-cognizing. Right? Whereas Vaibhashika school, the first school, doesn't accept that. Doesn't accept that the mind understands itself. Yes, Alec?
Do they reject the notion or do they just not assert it?
Reject, right? Okay. So, and also the what is high school? Prasangika Madhyamika. Prasangika Madhyamika also reject this self-cognizing mind. Right? So let's see. A person propounding lesser vehicle tenets who does not accept self-cognizing consciousness. This you got it. And who asserts external objects. This is quite understandable. Say, things exist externally. So what's happening to the new construction? Is it in your mind? No, it's right there, externally. Is so distant from your mind. So something which is distant from a mind is referred to as external. Mind is considered as internal, and something which is distanced from your mind is considered as external. So Vaibhashikas are someone who asserts external objects as being truly established, means truly existent. So now let's see why all these different points are picked up to define Vaibhashika. It's really very interesting. Let's see. So when you say propounding lesser vehicle tenets, means it has already cut down, the higher 2 schools. Vaibhashika school should be someone who doesn't belong to Chittamatra school and Madhyamika school, because it should belong to the lesser vehicle tenets. Right? 1. Now what is the possibility left? Vaibhashika or Sutrantika left. Right? So then it says, who does not accept self-cognizing consciousness. So this cuts down Sutrantika, because Sutrantika accepts in self-cognizing mind. Right?
This wouldn't be the way they would define themselves, is it?
So anyone, if you think, you don't know whether you are Vaibhashika or somewhat, you know, and yet you're so keen on philosophy. And, you know, when you think of yourself, you understand that you don't believe in self-cognizing mind. Right? So this means you are closer to a Vaibhashika. And then, what is next? And who asserts external objects? And if you're asked, construction, is that going on in your mind or outside? You say outside. Or this means you are still closer to a Vaibhashika. Because who asserts external objects? And is this something illusion-like or something real, truly existent? If you say truly existent, you become even closer. You know? So this means that because of you accepting that the construction going on is truly existing, which means that you don't belong to Madhyamika schools. And because you said that it exists externally, you don't belong to Chittamatra school, Mandurani school. And because you said that, you know, it is self-cognizing mind does not exist, you don't belong to Sutrantika. So what is left? Vaibhashika. This is what is known as Vaibhashika. Right? Okay. Now what are the sub-schools? I don't want to go in detail about the sub-schools. There are three groups of proponents of the Great Exposition: Kashmiris, Aparantakas, and Magadhas. Whether you know it or you don't know it, doesn't matter. There is reason for calling the master, it's an etymology, I don't want to go in detail. There is reason for calling the master was Sumitra, you know, one of the proponents of, celebrated, renowned proponents of Vaibhashika school position, was Sumitra, a proponent of the Great Exposition or a proponent of the particularist school, because same, particularist school or the Great Exposition, same. Because he propounds tenets following the great detailed exposition. Actually, great detailed exposition, great detailed exposition of the particulars. Actually, this should be the full title of the text. There is one text by the name Great Detailed Exposition of Particulars. This is the, you know, so because the Vaibhashikas, they follow this text as they you know, ultimate reference. You know, they are called as the particularist because they follow this text by the name the Great Detailed Exposition of Particulars. So they are known as the particularist or the particularist school or the the proponents of the Great Exposition, same, right? Then assertions of tenets. So this is the important part. What is the tenet? What is the, you know, positions? 10 points. So this is the most important part. This section has 3 parts. The assertions of the basis, parts, and fruits. This is what we are supposed to be learning. Assertions on the basis. This section has 2 parts: assertions regarding objects and assertions regarding object possessors. Okay. So now, this is the most important part: the basis, the parts, and the fruits. And one thing I'd like to tell you is that while I go through the Vaibhashika's position of the basis, parts, and the fruits, there are many things which are going to be common with other schools. You know, and there are some which are so unique and which seems to be also trivial, not so useful. So these I will omit, right? I will omit. Otherwise, you know, what we do is what we are going to take on to the other schools. So if it so happens that we finish Vaibhashika before, you know, quite early, then we can also do Sutrantika, in which case many of the things that we covered in Vaibhashika will not be repeated. We'll simply say this is what we have all done. Right? Okay. So you should be careful to make sure that you don't miss Vaibhashikas, you know, while I explain the Vaibhashikas, because when it comes to Sutrantika, I might say that this is what we have all done. Right? Okay, first, assertions on the basis. So the basis of the reality. This is what I told you last time. So it is so beautifully comprehended, everything that covers under the basis in two groups, the object and the subject. Right? Can you think of anything which doesn't fall in the category of object and subject? No. So it's so beautifully encapsulated, comprehended into these two topics, objects and subjects. So let's see. This section has two parts, assertions regarding objects and assertions regarding the object possessors referring to subjects. First, objects, assertions regarding objects. This system asserts that all objects of knowledge are included within 5 basic categories. So one thing I like to again tell you is that there are areas where Vaibhashika, the lowest Buddhist school, and the highest Buddhist school, they share in common. There are some areas, right? And they are otherwise, it is Vaibhashika who stands out so exclusively in terms of many of the positions, whereas the rest of the Buddhist schools, Sutrantika, Chittamatra, and Madhyamika, of course Prasangika, they all share most of the philosophical standpoints, in common. So whereas sometimes it is the lower school and the high school sharing things in common, which are not being accepted by the in-between schools, right? Okay, so now let's see. This system assertions regarding objects. This system asserts that all objects of knowledge are included within 5 basic categories. So this is a wonderful thing, and which is going to be shared with all other Buddhist schools. Okay, before going through the text, let me explain to you. You just think of those things which exist, which means preclude or exclude, just discard everything that is non-existent. Simply think of anything which is existent. All existent things can be divided, broadly divided into 2, permanent and impermanent. Why I'm doing this is to give you, because if you read this, then you get lost. So if I explain like this, then when we go back to the text, it makes a great sense, right? Okay, so everything that exists can broadly be divided into 2. What are they? Are they permanent or impermanent? It's so easy, right? You cannot think of something which is neither permanent nor impermanent and yet existing. You cannot imagine anything of that kind. So anything which exists should necessarily fall into the 2 categories, permanent and impermanent. Now the impermanent things, they again, has 3 subsections. Form, mind, and abstract composite things. Form, mind, and abstract composite things. So how many are there now?
4.
Oh, total 4, right? Permanent thing on the one hand, then impermanent broken down into 3 plus permanent, 4, right? And the mind, within the, the category, the second category of impermanent phenomena, which is mind, that again you break down into 2. The primary mind and the secondary minds. How many now? 5. 6 or 5?
5.
I've given you only 5 and you found 6.
Including permanent. You say all phenomena?
Here,
Permanent,
1, form.
mind, abstract?
No. Mind divided into 2.
Oh, okay.
Right?
5.
We have 5. So now let's see. This system asserts that all objects of knowledge are included within the 5 basic categories. What are they? Appearing forms. We're starting from impermanent phenomena. Appearing forms, which means forms. Main minds or the primary minds. Accompanying mental factors, which means secondary minds. And the compositional factors, referring to composite factors not associated, referring to the abstract composite of phenomena. And finally, uncompounded phenomena. Uncompounded phenomena referring to permanent phenomena. Any phenomena which is uncompounded means permanent phenomena. And you may wonder why, you know? How can the uncompounded be necessarily be permanent? Okay, moreover, these 5 objects are things. So this is, you know, you try to mark, which I say, this is the unique standpoint of Vaibhashika. So mark this. Moreover, these 5 objects are things. This is Vaibhashika's unique standpoint, which is not accepted by other schools. The definition of a thing is that which is able to perform a function. Existent, now look, existent, number 1. Well, number 1 is things, you know, which is already stated, things. Existent, object of knowledge, and what is that? Okay, a thing is already mentioned, so these 3, things, existent, object of knowledge, they are mutually inclusive, meaning they are all synonymous. Things, existent, and object of knowledge means that anything which is object of knowledge should necessarily be existent. Anything which is existent should necessarily be a thing. You know, these 3 are mutually inclusive, meaning synonymous. Next, uncompounded phenomena, referring to permanent phenomena, are considered to be permanent things. You know, uncompounded phenomena, permanent things are considered permanent things. Now look, forms, consciousness, and non-associated composition factors are considered to be impermanent things. All things are necessarily substantially established. Again, mark this. All things are necessarily substantially established. This is unique standpoint. But they do not necessarily substantially existent. Forget about it. This is so because they assert that ultimate truths and substantial existent are mutually inclusive, and that conventional truths and empirical phenomena, forget about it. There are divisions of objects into the true truths and into the contaminated, uncontaminated. Also with regard to this discussion of objects, there is a teaching of other ancillary topics. Okay, now look, so this is another important part. There are divisions of objects into two truths. So going to explain what two truths are. Very important part. This will kind of open, you know, open the door to understand the emptiness according to the higher schools. This is a wonderful thing which you will come to know, which we're going to do today. And then the second part is contaminated and uncontaminated. To some extent, of course, we'll do this. And third one, also with regard to this discussion of objects, there is a teaching of the other ancillary topics. Now, the first thing, that is two truths. Okay, before we delve into the text, we'll do the two truths and then we'll stop here for today. The two truths. Actually, if I have at least 4 months, then we can, you know, really do it with great excitement and, you know, very interestingly. I can put you into questions, you know. You come up with your response, or you come up with your questions, I give response. This kind of exchange, you know, interaction, exchange would be so nice to really gain, you know, deeply rooted understanding of the tenets. So anyway, let's try. The two truths. Interestingly, say this is very, very important part. Two truths. Two truths is what is accepted not only by the Madhyamika school of Buddhism, but by all 4 schools of Buddhism. Not only by Buddhists, even by the non-Buddhists, they accept it. But the question is, what do you mean by the two truths? You know, how profound it is. So that makes the difference in terms of the interpretation of the two truths by the you know, Buddhist, non-Buddhist, and within Buddhism, the different schools of Buddhism. So basically, you know, the truth, you must have to have some kind of understanding of the two truths, which, you know, which is acceptable by all schools, whether Buddhist or non-Buddhist, within, you know, the different schools of Buddhism. There must be some common explanation of the two truths. And then the very specific, you know, unique explanation will differ from one school to the other. So first, let me explain the common explanation of the two truths, which can be accepted by all schools and even by the non-Buddhist. First, the two truths are conventional truth and the ultimate truth. This is really very important thing, really, really very important. I want you to make it a point to understand this fully, you know. Okay. Say ultimate truth. Ultimate has the connotation, which is so reliable. Right? Say, oh, he said something else, and she said something else. Oh, you know, the person over there said something else. Their child is saying something else, you know. Out of these, which is the ultimate thing to be accepted, which means which is the most reliable one, right? So the ultimate truth has the connotation in general as something so reliable, and the conventional truth is something less reliable. This is the general understanding of the two truths according to all different systems, you know, who propound some understanding of the two truths. Now the next question is, what do you mean by, you know, which is so reliable? Then the schools differ in the interpretation. Even on the level of the ordinary mundane conversation, we say, oh, what he says is so reliable. We can take what he said as the ultimate. Because, you know that this person always speaks the truth. And whereas there's another person who says half true, you know, half something, then if that person says something, oh, you know, you may not say that, oh, you're not, I don't trust you, but you say so, which means that it is not ultimate, it is not so reliable, right? Even in the ordinary conversation, we see the usage of these two. So what is so reliable is what is known as the ultimate truth, and what is not so reliable is known as the conventional truth. Okay? So now, what does it mean by reliable in the sense of Vaibhashika school? Now we are doing the two truths in the context of Vaibhashika's, you know, position. So they put it so beautifully, you know. Say, what will happen to the table if somebody chops it? Will it, or somebody burns it? Will it remain always as a table? What will happen? Okay, you know, it changes to something else, you know, which means that the table is not reliable. Originally, it may assume a state of table, you know, tablehood, but then because of some other things, you know, it loses its identity. So it's not reliable. So, according to Vaibhashika, you know, through chopping it or through smashing it by something, hammer or whatever, you know, it loses its identity. So, it's unable to maintain its identity so strongly. So therefore, it is not reliable. So the table is not ultimate reality. So since that it is existent and not reliable, is unreliable, it is known as conventional reality. Still, I've not defined what is ultimate reality and what is conventional reality according to Vipassana. I've given you some kind of clue, right? So can you think of, something else which also falls in the category of conventional reality, but don't give very easy examples as books or house like that. Give something more concrete. Or can you think of something which falls in the category of ultimate reality, which is so reliable? Mind. Do you think that mind is reliable or unreliable?
Which mind are we talking about?
Why unreliable? Changes, but does it ever become something non-mind?
No.
Even if it changes to bad or good or whatever, still it remains as mind.
Yeah.
So this is reliable?
Reliably unreliable.
Anyway, Jambal really came up with a very strong point. Anyone else? Karma.
Buddha nature.
Karma.
About matter.
Sorry?
Matter in general.
Matter. Oh, good. Matter. Do you think, by any means you can make a matter into non-matter?
No.
Yes,
Yeah, it goes into energy.
yeah.
Energy is matter.
No, matter is energy.
Oh, strictly from physics point of view, matter can be, annihilated into energy,
Yeah.
which is not non-matter. Anyway, from Vipassana, I don't think Vipassana is as sophisticated as the present-day physics. So, which means that from point of view of Vipassana, matter is ultimate reality. Good. Anything else? Okay, that's it. You got it. So the ultimate reality, matter and mind, and atom, and form. Form can never become non-form. What about person? Or what about beings?
Yeah.
At any point, will they become non-being?
No, that would be included.
In what? Included in what? Ultimate reality or
As an ultimate.
ultimate reality? Okay. This is what you need to understand, what you need to know. According to Vipassana, after you finish nirvana, when you die, you simply annihilate, you disappear. This is according to Vipassana. You no more exist as a being. You simply disappear like a rainbow disappearing in the air.
So then it's not an ultimate existence.
Yes, true.
So nirvana is just a conventional existence?
Not nirvana, the person,
Being.
the being, yeah. Right? Okay, now let's read. So, now to give you a picture of the two truths, before we read the text, ultimate truth can roughly be defined as anything which holds its identity despite something externally coming to smash it, or despite mentally trying to tease that apart. Even after, whether physically coming to smash it, or by mentally teasing that apart into pieces, if something is able to maintain its identity as it is always, this is reliable. This is ultimate nature. Whereas something comes to smash it, it loses its identity, or mentally you try to tease apart, or mentally you try to segment the object, which physically you cannot do. Mentally you try to do it, then if the object loses its identity, then say the moon, we cannot really go there and tease that apart into pieces. We cannot break it into pieces, but mentally you can break that, the moon. So when you break the moon, mentally into 1 million pieces, and put one, in the Abbeys, and one in somewhere in Australia like that, if you try to, then what happens to the moon? Will it remain as moon? No. So this means that it is not something that you did physically, but mentally you break that into pieces. So by mentally breaking that into pieces, it is unable to retain its identity as a moon. So something which cannot retain its identity by means of externally smashing it into pieces or by mentally breaking that into pieces. If you're unable to maintain your identity, you are a conventional reality. If you're able to still maintain the identity, you are ultimate reality, right? So what happens to this table? I don't want you to really come and break into pieces, but you mentally try to break into pieces. What will happen? Will it be able to maintain its identity? No. So what is it? Conventional reality. Then what about the form? What about this form? I'm not talking about this watch. I'm talking about the form. This as a form. This is a matter. Don't think of so still be in the primitive world of Vaibhashika. Don't be in this modern physics world, right? So this matter, you break into pieces. You break into pieces, and do you think that this object as a matter will ever, disappear? No. It will always remain. However much you break that into pieces, it will still retain its identity as matter. So what is the matter that I have in my mind, in my hand? Is that ultimate truth or conventional truth? You got it. Let's read. The two truths. The definition of a conventional truth is a phenomena which is such that when it is broken up or mentally separated, broken up meaning externally breaking that apart, or mentally separated into individual parts, the awareness apprehending that object is cancelled. Meaning that, you break this table into pieces and still you're understanding, there's a table over there. It simply goes away. It disappears. Will it disappear or still it will remain there? You'll still, keep on seeing the table there. You smash it or you burn it, and do you think that, the original perception of the table, will it always remain like that? No. Then you will start seeing fire burning. And then finally you will see nothing left over there, just ashes. The perception is there, the perception of the table simply is cancelled. It's no more there, right? So if that happens, that object of the perception is conventional reality. For example, a clay pot and a rosary are illustrations of conventional truths. A clay pot, you smash it by hammer, and do you think that your seeing of the clay pot will always remain like that? No, then you will start seeing something else, just the pieces of, the broken parts. And then the rosary, you have the rosary, you break the string, and then what will happen? Then the beads will simply scatter. So where's the rosary? So the idea as a rosary is lost, it's cancelled. So this rosary is not, rosary belongs to the category of conventional reality. Say a clay pot and a rosary are illustrations of conventional truths, because if a clay pot is broken with a hammer, the awareness apprehending the object as a clay pot is cancelled. And if the beads of rosary I think this is the commentary. Because in the root text, it is not, clearly explained as like this. I don't think. Anyway, if the beads of the rosary are separated, the awareness apprehending that object as a rosary is cancelled. The definition of the ultimate truth is a phenomena which is such that when it is broken up or mentally separated into individual parts, the consciousness apprehending that object is not cancelled. Meaning, the matter in front of me, in my hand. You break that into pieces. Of course, the matter in my hand can be broken down into two parts, right? Into millions of parts, the matter, which means the watch. Yeah. The same watch can be, perceived in different ways. You can see this as a watch. And the dog, I don't think he will perceive that as a watch. right? So the same thing can be perceived from different ways. So one of the ways by which to perceive what is there in my hand is as a matter, right? So the matter that I have in my hand, can that be broken down into 10 pieces? Yes. And while breaking, that thing into pieces, what about its entity as a matter? Will it disappear or will it still remain? Will still remain. Even after breaking that into many pieces, still my perception of, oh, there's a matter in my hand, will still remain. It will not be cancelled. So, which means that even after breaking that into pieces, your perception of, the matter keeps on, keeps on there. It always remains. So this means that what is in my hand as a matter is ultimate truth. The definition of ultimate truth is a phenomena which is such that when it is broken up or mentally separated into individual parts, the consciousness apprehending that object as a matter is not cancelled. It does not disappear. Illustrations of ultimate truths are directionally partless particles. And then what? Temporarily partless moments of consciousness and uncompounded space. Okay, so what is the first illustration? Directionally partless particles. So what will happen to this watch if I break that down into two pieces? It have two pieces. Then the first piece, piece A, if I break that into two, again AA and AB, right? You keep on breaking that down. What would be the final subtlest part of it? So say it'll come down to atoms. Atoms can be broken down into electrons, protons, and these things. Again, further can be broken down into quarks. So according to, Vaibhashika school, after breaking them down, so what do you think? Do you think that it will ever come to a point where, there is the subtlest particle which cannot be broken down any further? Okay, so but whereas from the Vaibhashika's point of view, it will come to the subtlest particle which cannot be broken down any further. This, they call it as directionally partless particle. A particle which has no direction. For example, this table, it has east, west, north, south, up, down. And you break it down into two, the part A. Again, it has east, west, north, south, up, down. You break it down, and finally, Vaibhashikas and Sutrantika, the two lower schools, they say that finally it will come to a very subtle particle which has no more of the directions, which you cannot, since it has no directions, you cannot divide it into any further. And this is what is known as directionally partless particle. So this is in terms of the physical matter. Now in terms of the mental, mind, again you can divide your mind. The mind, today's mind, it can be divided into 24 segments. The mind of the first hour, mind of the second hour, like that. And again you divide the first hour's mind. You can divide that into 6 parts. The first minute mind, second minute mind, like that. Again, you can divide the first minute mind into 60 more divisions. The first second mind, like that. You go on dividing it. And do you think that you will ever come to a point whereby there's a mind, the subtlest state of a mind, which cannot be divided any further? Okay, so according to Vaibhashika and Sutrantika, yes, there is a mind, the subtlest mind, and which they call as the temporarily partless moments of consciousness, right? So since that it has no temporal, parts, meaning, do you understand what it means by temporarily partless moments of mind? Do you understand it? It means that the smallest segment of a mind, which has, whose beginning and whose end we cannot distinguish, right? The beginning and the end almost like same, but they don't say it, because they will be trapped in internal contradiction, right? Okay, so, and then, right, since that it has no parts, temporal parts, so therefore you cannot even mentally separate that final segment of the mind into divisions, because of which it will remain as, you know, it will retain its identity, even if your mind tries to tease that, break that into smaller bits. And then finally, the uncompounded space. This is the ultimate truth, which is so reliable, which never changes, right? So again, this is in connection with Jambul's questions. Okay, we stop here. Finally, we got somewhere. Okay, questions?
I was wondering, for instance, like water. Water, if you break it into smaller.
I see. What did he say here? Okay. For Vasubandhu's treasury of manifest knowledge says, so then whatever is being said earlier, it is, you know, it is rooted, it is taken out from Vasubandhu's treasury of knowledge, which says that a thing which is such that if broken or mentally separated into others or parts, an awareness of it no longer operates, such as a pot or water. Your question, right? Is conventionally existent. So, you agree with this or not?
So I think that
What is conventional truth or ultimate truth?
I can think it as a conventional truth and as an ultimate truth
Both?
at the same time. Yeah.
Oh.
If you have a mass of water and you split it, it's still a mass of water, right? But if then the water you boil, it's a vapor.
So the water. Okay, if you break further and further and further, I see. Oh, you're right. Okay, that's right. So what is said here? Such as pot or water is conventionally existent. Can any one of you help me and help Vasubandhu to say that the water belongs to the category of conventional reality? I think what she said is quite clever, wise. It evaporates and it's no more water, you know? It's conventional reality. What? Actually, so this I really need to check it from, you know, the authoritative commentaries, because in the Tibetan version of this text, it is not as explicit as translated here, such as a pot or water. It simply said, you know, pot water. Pot water can be interpreted as a pot and water in a pot. You know, say when you break the pot, then the pot water is lost. Right? The identity as a pot water is lost. In the Tibetan version, it is pot water. Right? Rather than pot and water or water. Okay, so we really need to refer to the authoritative and classical Indian commentaries. So still, even if you write it as a pot or water, we can interpret what, you know, she interpreted. We boil it and then the identity as water is lost. It's just a vapor, it's not water. But would you say it's water? Still? A vapor? Yes, no? It's not water. Are you sure?
It's droplets. It's still droplets.
Well, no.
Okay, it's fine. So then, therefore, it is asserted. So this is how debate works, you know, to make, and it helps us activate our mind, you know, so vigorously. It sharpens our mind. So very, you know, powerful argument put by Jambul, saying that water is something which should be drinkable, and we cannot drink this vapor. One, and then very strong argument from here is still water because it's water drops. You know, It's also a very strong argument. So by that way, you try to hold your own position, saying that it's not water, and then someone will come up with the debate saying that isn't it a drop of water?
Does it taste like it?
A drop of water, yes or no? You know, you should be able to hold your position, and you should, hold the position that vapor is still water. And then if you ask, "Oh, is it drinkable?" then you have to answer it. So this is how debate works. So this is how it really keeps our mind so active and so precise and so coherent, and being able to articulate, the ideas so clearly. When that happens, then when you meditate on emptiness, the prasangika's emptiness, it comes to your mind so clearly and vividly, It's not like mixed with something else, like cloud, not like that. It's very sharp, very clear, idea, concept of emptiness can come about with that kind of mentality, this kind of training. So therefore, the study of Tenet is really very important. So this is why I told you, if I get at least about 4 months, then we can really, get to somewhere. Yes?
I have a strange question.
Uh,
It might not even make sense. But I'd just like to ask, how would the Vaibhashikas define time? And the reason why I ask is because they say that the temporally partless moment of consciousness is an ultimate truth. Is a temporally partless moment of consciousness, there should be a partless moment
yeah,
of time in which it occurs.
yeah.
So they would also have to assert that time is an ultimate truth, but they haven't asserted that.
Oh no, it doesn't mean, this is the illustration given. It doesn't mean that, all ultimate truths should necessarily be exhausted in these illustrations.
So there's room to assert more.
Yeah, sure.
So it's not just matter.
For example, form. Form is also ultimate truth.
Right.
And time is also ultimate truth. And space is also ultimate truth. And nirvana is also ultimate truth. So there are countless numbers of ultimate truths.
Okay. So this is not an exhaustive list of what they
No.
say as being ultimate truth.
No,
Okay.
no. Okay, so therefore, the text continues. Therefore, it is asserted that conventional truths are not ultimately established, although they are truly established. This is because this system asserts that all things are necessarily truly established. Don't worry. Simply, understand what it means by ultimate truth and conventional truth. The next, contaminated and uncontaminated. That's this we're going to do tomorrow. 1 or 2 questions. Yes.
What does,
2 questions.
what does truly established mean?
You want to go through it? Okay. Therefore, it is asserted that conventional truths are not ultimately established, although they are truly established. Ultimately established meaning, which is established or which exists as, as reliable, as so ultimate. And truly established means which exists with, a sound basis, meaning which exists as not mentally created.
Okay.
Next question. Yes. Yes.
It's only partly related to tenets.
Sorry?
It's only partly related to tenets.
True tenets is fine, yeah.
It's a little bit different.
Okay, fine.
The Svatantrika Madhyamikas only accept the second wheel as definitive, right? The first.
Svatantrika Madhyamika,
Yeah.
part of,
Yeah.
a
Then
part of the second turn of the wheel.
I don't understand why they accept the 3 fractional wisdom sutras as definitive, but Heart Sutra is interpreted.
Because, Heart Sutra, in the Heart Sutra, nowhere it says that it interprets itself. Nowhere in Heart Sutra it interprets itself as, when it says, oh, there is no form, there is no sound, and so forth. Nowhere it says that by this, no sound, it doesn't mean no sound literally. it simply means no truly existent sound, no way that is mentioned. But whereas in the 100,000, the Perfection Wisdom Sutra, there's a very clear statement that, you know, all these negations imply no true existence of that object. So therefore, you know, the 100,000 stanza sutra is considered as definitive, and Heart Sutra is interpretable. Okay, we stop here.